Because it was made entirely of stone and glass, the Chartres Cathedral in France was thought to be a textbook example of the Gothic style. Cathedrals often had histories of construction which continued over long periods of time due to the instability of finances and unpredictable nature of disease, war, and famine. And the Chartres Cathedral was no different. It took 27 years to rebuild following the fire of 1194. The Chartres Cathedral was the first cathedral to include a key high Gothic element, flying buttresses. The size of the clerestory windows were also increased significantly, but even though it was increased, the interior was still relatively dark because colored glass replaced the typical clear glass, noticeably altering the perception of the interior. The cathedral evolved from the site of a pre-Christian virgin goddess cult to a highly frequented pilgrimage destination when it came to house the relic of the Virgin Mary. The relic was a piece of cloth, from possibly a robe or tunic, supposedly worn by the Virgin during childbirth, and rumored to have supernatural healing ability, which attracted quite a bit of attention. The relic was a staple, stimulating the economy through both the cathedral's earnings and the revenue from cloth markets held on feast days of the Virgin. Textiles as well as food, wine, and fuel were sold around different areas of the cathedral. Its role as a pilgrimage destination made it logical that the builders created the pattern of a maze on the floor, which would align perfectly with the north rose window if it were hinged at the ground and bent down. The structure also implies that the cathedral is an initiation center, a place where initiates, pilgrims, would be able to escape the cyclical nature of incarnation through purification of their spiritual bodies on earth, which would be reflected into the heavenly realm. Images of the Virgin and Jesus are prominent in both sculptural depictions and stained glass throughout the cathedral. On the west facade of the cathedral, the royal portal, a set of 3 doors used only by exclusive members of the church, such as the bishop, depict 3 separate scenes. On the right is God's first earthly appearance, labeled the Incarnation, with a heavy emphasis on the Virgin's part in the early existence of Christ. This is clearly an event of the past, highlighting the mystery behind his birth. The right portal is nicely juxtaposed with the left portal, which does the opposite. Rather than coming to earth from heaven, Christ, the incarnate God, is returning from earth back to heaven in the Ascension, an event thought to be of the present. The central portal depicts the future, Christ enthroned and surrounded by the 4 evangelists, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, in a tranquil yet human state. The openings on the gems include images of Christ's regal lineage, from carvings of kings and queens to prophets specifically mentioned in the Hebrew Bible, uniting figures from both the Old and New Testament. The stained glass windows also depict Christian iconography, in how the Virgin Mary is shown with the child Christ on her lap in the heavenly realm as a regal queen in a lancet called Our Lady of the Beautiful Window. The Christian ideologies of salvation for sin are also shown in a stained glass window titled The Good Samaritan, where a parable detailed by Christ involving a man who cares for another human being victimized by bandits is portrayed.